Welcome back. So there's some good news, there's some iffy news, there's some news still coming. So let's just jump into some things with Tampa. Tampa's reopening its training facility. This is a good thing. Now, I know people are going to say that's terrible. They just had positive tests, shut it down, because that's what people do. I picture there's people on the internet that get up every morning and go, all right, who am I going to call greedy and tell them they shouldn't exist today? I'm going to start with Major League Baseball. I'm going to go to the NBA. I may go over to soccer. You know what? Tennis. Novak Djokovic proved tennis shouldn't exist. Hockey. Then I'm going to go to the Gap, pick myself up a shirt, come home, and I'll tell other things they shouldn't exist. Oh, and I got to stop off at a fast food restaurant and pick myself up a burger and some fries. I love irony. Anyways, so yeah, that's where we're at, and so Tampa's reopened. It's a good thing because this means they didn't find any other positives. There weren't any other positives announced anyways, so that means they tested everybody and they went, all right, so we're good. We'll move along. That's good. That means that it was isolated, and we keep going. And so, again, they can have practices of up to 12 people at a time, and it's voluntary. Vancouver. What's going on, Vancouver? So according to Elliot Friedman, it had basically been, the way he's making it sound like is, they were ready to announce hub cities potentially today. And it was going to be Vancouver and Vegas. And that was basically fait accompli. And he got told, pump the brakes on that. I have no reason to think Elliot Friedman would be lying to us. You know, I did the video last week where I was joking around about his beard and his facial hair. And generally, you know, I'm obviously kidding around. And Elliot Friedman's a guy I have great respect for. And what he's reporting is Vancouver might be out. He doesn't know what it is exactly, but it may be Canada-wide. So it may be an issue with an effect on Edmonton, having an effect on Toronto. And then when the topic of whether or not maybe the numbers are looking better in New York, could they do something in New York? New York has a 14-day mandatory quarantine for anybody coming into the area. So no, it would not work for New York. So this may be a bubble issue as well. It may be an issue of Vancouver saying, okay, here's how we're going to maintain the bubble, and the NHL going, we don't like that. That's not the kind of airtight scenario we want. And they still believe that Vegas can give them an airtight scenario where they don't have to worry. So local numbers, they're not entirely worried about. Although safety is important, they're looking at it and saying you can get an entire hotel, a gigantic hotel. Just one would be needed for all those teams. And they could have all the facilities they need in-house. They have full gyms in these places. And again, you don't need to go anywhere. You've got a mall inside some of these hotels in Vegas. So really, in all honesty, it could be completely self-contained, and Vegas can do that. Especially since they lost the NBA. The NBA going to Orlando, unless the Orlando thing doesn't work out, in which case they could end up in Vegas. But I doubt it. Anyways, we'll see whether or not Vancouver stays in it. I really thought it would be cool if Vancouver got to be a hub city. The numbers have been very good, so hopefully that happens. Now, if you're looking for hockey news, well, on Friday, we're going to have the draft lottery, which I'm, hoping will be something where we don't just get placeholder teams, we get actual teams to announce. But the Hall of Fame announcement is today. Now, on TSN at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, I would think the NHL Network would be hosting that in other countries as well. But again, after the Hall of Famers are announced, I will definitely do a video on who got in and who didn't. And every time I do a video talking about Hall of Fame, there are all kinds of names that get thrown out. Like, for instance, people were like, why didn't you mention Daniel Alfredsson? Alfredsson's been waiting a very short period of time compared to a lot of the guys I was talking about yesterday. These guys have been waiting a very long time to get in. So while do I think Alfredsson belongs in there? Yeah, probably so. He has not been waiting nearly as long as some of the other guys on that board. So yeah. We'll find out today, this afternoon, about an hour or two and a half hours from when I'm recording this, who's going to get in and who isn't. Reed Boucher. So if you're a Vancouver fan, you may or may not be aware that Reed Boucher is a guy that very many Canuck fans have been pushing to get onto the team. As well as Hudobin, saying we need these guys in the bottom six. They're skilled, they're good players, they don't belong in the AHL. Well, you're in luck here. Kind of. Reed Boucher agrees he doesn't belong in the AHL next season, and he's signed with Avangard in the KHL for next year. So he is gone. He's restricted free agent this offseason, so he's just going over to the KHL. And it makes sense. I don't think the Canucks had room for him. Now, whether or not there's an NHL out in that contract, maybe. But, again, Boucher's one of those guys. And you can go back to Darren Haydar as a good example of a guy that can be really, really good in the AHL. And at the NHL level, it just doesn't work. And you can have that debate about whether or not he should get more ice time in the NHL. But in reality, some players are just like that. They're really, really good in the AHL, but they're not quite NHL capable. Sometimes it's a skating issue, sometimes it's a size issue, and in some cases they need to play top six to play their game to its highest potential. They aren't guys who play very well in bottom six roles. So that's the way that works, and all the best to Reed Boucher, a guy that I liked, but I understood why the Canucks had him in the American Hockey League. Kravtsov, if you're a Rangers fan, good news. Kravtsov is going to be joining the Rangers for training camp. So that's good news for fans of Kravtsov, and I would think for Rangers fans as well. And that could be one of those wild cards in the midst of the restart that we're going to see this summer. All right, now that the trucks have gone by, it's garbage day. To quote, is it Silent Night, Deadly Night 2? Anyways, Oscar Lindblom's back on the ice for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, I'm going to be contrarian with this just a little bit. Lindblom being back on the ice, it's a great story. He's almost finished his chemo treatments. But if we're looking at people who might be at high risk of getting really sick, if we have some sort of an outbreak in the hockey world, he would be one I'd be really, really worried about. So, while yes, I'm glad to see him back on the ice. I'm glad to see him working out. I'm glad to see that's happening. And he's excited to play again. I have my reservations about that. So, I really want this to be as safe as humanly possible because, again, Lindblom's been a great story. Let's keep that a great story. Now, New Jersey Devils, it feels like every week there's a new name tied to the Devils as potentially being their next coach. So why not Lindy Ruff? Sure. Why don't we throw every name out there? Just why don't we use active coaches too? I just find it funny because it feels like every week there's a new headline with a potential new coach. This guy's potentially the next coach. They all are. So maybe we'll have like 8 coaches for the Devils next year. Hey, it could work because then you can fire like 7 of them. You can fire like one every other week and not run out for quite a while. But hopefully New Jersey settles on the right guy. Now, Lindy Ruff, I like as a head coach. I do. I think he's a decent coach and could very well get New Jersey back to the playoffs. New Jersey has 3 first-round picks this year, and considering how deep the draft is, their latest pick might be as low as like 17th in the draft, which is Vancouver's. They could do very, very well for themselves. So here's to hoping, fingers crossed, that New Jersey does that because their run at the bottom really has to come to an end at some point, right? Outside of that playoff appearance a couple years ago, it's been a bit of a dry spell. Now, of course, for the NHL, the rumored start date is July 30th. Now, interestingly enough, Major League Baseball appears to be at the end of fighting with itself and destroying itself and trying to come up with a way to come back, which, again, there are definitely a lot of people, you're never coming back, and nothing's ever, everybody's greedy. Okay, all right. No, we got it. Been hearing it since March. You know, anyways. Major League Baseball is looking at July 23rd or 24th as a start date in a 60-game schedule. I think the funniest part about this is seeing people go, 60-game schedule is ridiculous. That's not a season. Yeah, it kind of sort of is. For everything but baseball, 162 games is absolutely ridiculous. The smartest thing baseball could do is cut their season in half. But the problem is then, of course, the players make half the money, and the owners make half the money, and then, games would be important. So you could lose a doubleheader and go, we've still got 160 other games. We're not really worried about that doubleheader. So yeah, the Major League Baseball start date for the 60-game schedule, I don't necessarily think this means that it's not an official season, but there certainly are baseball fans going, this is just ridiculous. You can't have a 60-game season. That's insane. And again, if you're a football fan, you'd be like, pardon? What? Like NFL, we have 16 games. Part of what makes the NFL so awesome to me is that every single game matters. You don't have a game where you're like, well, it's fine, it doesn't matter, unless you're already 12-3, unless you're already 11-1. But in general, every game is important, especially early in the season. And with Major League Baseball, every game would suddenly have some importance. Because if you lose back to back, you've only got 58 other games, not 160. So the NHL deciding they want to come back in late July, it's likely, and this is if everything goes positively, baseball would beat them by about a week. And it looks like they would be coming in around the same time as basketball. And then everybody can get all mad and shouty about it. I mean, we have seen over the last couple of days, Novak Djokovic definitely made some bad decisions, and now he is, dealing with the consequences of that for the tournaments he had. And that showed that if you don't have a safe way of doing this, yeah, it ends up being a complete and total disaster. I don't get the feeling the NHL is going to do anything like Djokovic did. I just don't get the feeling it's going to be the same at all. Him out partying and hugging everybody, it's a big old party. It's not, though. It's not a party right now. But hey, that being said, we're going to have ourselves a party on Friday, right? With the draft lottery. So sure. Look forward to seeing you guys then. And when the announcement is made of the Hall of Famers, which is now less than 2.5 hours away from me at the time I'm recording this, I will do a video after, and we'll talk about who got in. And again, we will talk about who didn't and what the odds are of any of these people getting in. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.